Welcome back to the final segment of Community Matters, a special Community Matters when we've been talking about the big London debate. We've covered housing in depth. I've had my two guests here talk about themselves and how they've got into politics, and I've had quite a bit of a debate with them, but we still got a few more things to cover, and I've only got the final quarter of an hour to do that with you. So what am I going to talk about? We still need to talk about crime and health, and then we're going to probably look at have a brief chat about the upcoming 5th of May elections, and no doubt these guys are going to give you a bit of insight into that, and then we leave it up to you as the audience to decide, and no doubt you'll have your views. If you want to say something, the email's across the bottom. By all means, send it in. If we get a chance, we'll try to address it by the end of the show today. If not, I'm sure you get a reasonable response from one of the guys behind the studio. And as I've been doing, I've always been going ladies first. I'm going to get in trouble for that, aren't I? Equality Act 2010, I'm really sorry. Right, Elaine, we have got to talk about, I'm going to choose health over crime first. Okay. I know it's not in that order because in terms of health, now this has been going on for ages. So the very first thing, privatisation, it has its pros and its cons. And I think I'd like to hear your view on that, really.
Okay, so I mean, the NHS for me is a brilliant institution. I think we should be wedded far more to the principle of healthcare free at the point of use. So I don't agree with a fully privatised NHS system. It should be free for everyone when you need to go and see a doctor, when you get rushed into A&E. My younger brother had to have open heart surgery at the age of 15. Wow. So he had that in Leicester, I think it was. If we had been living in America, there was absolutely no way that our family could have been able to afford that. So for me, it's about making sure that we maintain the fact that the NHS is free at the point of use, that you can get an appointment when you need to, at the same time making sure that we're investing in the NHS and making sure that it's sustainable. My issue is that as we have a constantly ageing population, we don't train people quick enough to be able to look after those people. We're not dealing with some of the new health problems that you get, when you've got a population that's aging all the time. It means that you're dealing with things like dementia and Alzheimer's and those kind of long-term issues far more. So making sure that we're looking at things like social care and care in the home and not just concentrating on things like A&E and hospitals. Yes,
and it does expand. I mean, a lot of people don't actually realise, but it does expand out to social care, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely huge. So my younger brother also ended up being a carer. So he does the home visits and make sure people are looked after when they don't have a family there to take care of them. For people like him, it's making sure that he gets paid the living wage and isn't on dodgy contracts where he gets paid less than he should be. And so making sure that we look after our carers and that caring community alongside the doctors and nurses and that traditional view of healthcare that we all have. Actually, it's far wider than that. So community nurses and midwives, and making sure that we're looking after the whole infrastructure and not just thinking about kind of A&E. A&E obviously is incredibly important. If you have to go there, you need to make sure that it's working. But it's looking at actually how can we have an NHS that's really responsive to an ageing population, to the money not necessarily being available, and things like new technology, and how can we use that to make it work better for people.
Wait, I guess I should give you the opportunity, Yeah,
I mean, the National Health Service was one of the great achievements of the post-war Labour government, and it's actually it's a national asset, and really it is a national health service. It's national and it's about health, and it should be free at as Elaine pointed out, the point of use. And this marketization that has crept in over the last few years, again, is a Tory-driven dogma. And really, it's about, we've got to put people and health before profit. And yes, it's about looking at ways of delivering services, but the basic concept of the National Health Service is extremely important. We've got to look at other areas, preventive medicine and so on. But coming particularly to London and East London, health is a major issue here. And there is a need for more resources to be pumped into East London. There is a very disturbing statistic. For every stop you travel along the Jubilee line eastwards, your life expectancy actually decreases. And that is simply not acceptable. So what a mayor of London can do, I mean, the mayor of London London, of whatever party, actually does not have that many powers over health, but they can play a strategic role, linking up all the different sort of quangos, the health authorities, campaigning for more resources, acting as a health champion for London. It's also about looking at issues like mental care and social care funding. That's a grave issue. You know, I mean, we got to think about the implications. In fact, those implications actually are hitting us very hard right now. How you're going to fund social care for the elderly and so on.
Well, I mean, they're being squeezed every so often. I mean, the NHS is just being squeezed. And I mean, if I can just share a quick interesting fact that I got off the House of Commons Library the other day, that they have had a 500,000 vote increase on the number of people where they cannot get a GP appointment within a week, and some not getting any at all. And then another fact I've just picked up here, sort of, the Guardian is saying that NHS is going to the subcontinent, which you and I originate from, to do recruitment for what, cheaper wages.
Yeah, I mean, I think the junior doctors' strike sums it all up, and I fully support them in what they're doing. I mean, they've been left with no resort by Jeremy Hunt actually basically pointing a gun to their head. And these are people who don't want to strike. They provide a very essential public service. Now again, I mean, you know, there's nothing wrong with our national health, with nursing and health and doctor and other medical professionals from abroad. I mean, the National Health Service always relied on people from the Commonwealth. I mean, it was you know, it was Enoch Powell, ironically, in 1954 as Minister of Health, who was actually responsible for putting advertisements in papers in the Caribbean, actually urging nurses from the Caribbean to come over and work in the National Health Service. The National Health Service would collapse if it wasn't for the type of professional people, the carers that I've talked about. But it points to a fundamental problem that we face: the continual underfunding of the National Health Service, the running down of the NHS, the concept itself, the free marketization, the dogma-driven policies that this government is so obsessed with. We talked about housing earlier and the Housing and Planning Bill, and we can see that again in the way that they're treating the junior doctors and the NHS. It's all very well to talk about our precious NHS and how much this government says that they'll look after it and protect it. But actions speak louder than words.
We've got to move on to the other topic because we're very short on time. But if I was to just ask you, I just wanted a minute really for summing up on health, because I mean, it's interesting from everything you've just told me about. I mean, the immediate thing that comes to me is there's probably a lot of people that aren't aware and are taking it for granted, and it's almost like saying that there's that television program or film, that Sicko, which was done by the gentleman in America. These are the sort of things that people need to be made aware of, aren't they?
I think so. I mean, for me, I think one of the big issues is how we treat care in this country. So we think it's okay to underpay the people that go in and look after elderly people in their homes, and nurses and GPs, and fundamentally that's part of the problem, is that we just don't treat those people that are looking after, if not us, our friends and our family that are unwell, and we need to make sure that they are paid properly, that we take care of them as well. So we shouldn't have junior doctors that have to work 18 hours or more as one shift, and then to have Jeremy Hunt turn around and say that there isn't a 7-day NHS is absolutely appalling. If anyone should be resigning from the government, it's him and not Cameron over a tax return or anything else. And so I think those are the kind of issues that we really need to look at. In terms of London and the East End, it's looking at things like, well, what's causing our poor health? That's things like air quality. So we have some of the poorest air quality in the country in the East End of London, because we've got things like the tunnel and all of the car pollution that comes from that. So looking at how do we address those problems.
Umesh, if I was to ask you to really direct it towards Newham and the needs for Newham going forward, health-wise, I mean, what would you say to that?
Well, I'm afraid it comes to the issue of more resources. We're chronically underfunded, not just in Newham, all over East London. And it's about looking at long-term strategies, again, preventative medicine. We've got diseases like TB reappearing. Wow. When, we thought we had got rid of it many years ago. Yeah. Mental health, we haven't talked about that. That could be a show in its own right. The funding of social care and the elderly. So these are major issues. The reality is the recruitment of doctors from abroad, from the Indian subcontinent you talked about, that's a symptom of the problem. And the problem is the running down of the National Health Service by this particular government.
Yeah. Okay, that's health out of the way, and we could go on.
We still got to talk about crime.
We still got to talk about crime, but we could have an entire show on health. I might invite these guys back another time just to talk about health. No doubt you'd want to hear that as well. I think it's quite smooth for me to come into you, Lena, first for crime, because in crime right now, all over the papers, all over the media, it seems the hate crime in particular, Islamophobia, that is a big issue. And I mean, what can be done?
So there are a lot of things that I think we can do. Part of it is looking at the police and how they deal with Islamophobia and all hate crime. So making sure that they're trained when people report it to actually treat it seriously, and so that people and particular communities aren't put off reporting it. And it's looking at things like there used to be a race crime board for London that was disbanded, so it's putting that back in place. So that would be where people shared best practice and they looked at what was actually going on. So making sure that that's.
Well, how long has that been disbanded for?
Oh, quite a while, I think. That's over 12 months, I think. I'd have to check.
Almost to a point where we've needed it the most.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And then it's other things like stop and search and the prevent strategy, which actually target particular communities in a way that doesn't make them want to engage with the police. And then
clearly provocative and
incredibly. And then there's been, it leads to things like the dog whistle campaign that's being led at the moment, talking about extremists. And then the other thing is about taking it away from crime, and then it's looking at what is causing that rise in Islamophobia and its breakdown in local communities. So again, looking at Tower Hamlets, we had a very divisive administration in the council for a long time, which basically played on driving communities apart and driving a wedge between them. And what we actually need to have is making sure that we're uniting communities, bringing them together, making sure we're working in schools so that people understand all of the different backgrounds and the incredibly rich, diverse history that we have in the East End.
I'm really sorry. It just seems like I'm going to give you a minute on crime because it seems like we're
this
running out of time.
Extremely important issue for London and Londoners: hate crime, how we deal with it, and community cohesion. And let me say straight away that yes, we need to give the police more powers. There's going to be that will within the police service to tackle hate crime and so on. But it's important that politicians and public figures set a lead. How we talk and handle ourselves in public is so important. And what you've seen over the last few days, dog whistle politics, descending into what is blatant racism and Islamophobia, that actually encourages hate crimes out there on the streets. We could be very careful in our public utterances, especially when, it's all very well, you and I will have political differences and debate and so on, but you can't descend to gutter politics and the lowest common denominator of politics. We've got to think of our words and actions and what consequences that has for community cohesion out there. If you set a lead, then other people will follow. And the other thing about hate crime is, strengthening police resources, targeting. Elaine's talked about some good ideas, but it's the political will, the result, and ensuring that actually all our public services actually have proper recording systems, monitoring systems, and put action plans, strategies and plans into action.
You know what? We've been so deep in this. The time has sort of run away from us. So I've really got to give you a moment now to sum up. Really, we've only got a couple of minutes each. So I mean, if you could take this opportunity.
These are extremely important issues. London is at a crossroads. London is a city that has got many problems. London has got a grave housing crisis. Its transport system is crumbling. Crime is on the rise under the present government. It needs a mayor and elected representatives who can get people housed, who can get London moving, who can make Londoners feel safe or safer. And that is what our candidate Sadiq Khan is pledging to do.
Okay.
And I believe he's a person, above all, who can unite London.
And I'll give you 30 seconds, really, just to say, go for it.
So I think the big message to people from me is that actually, the story of the East End about poverty, children growing up in poverty, people not being able to get a home, well, that's been the story for as long as anyone can remember. So you don't have to accept things as they are. You can make a difference on the 5th of May and you can vote for change, and you can vote for Caroline Pidgeon and the London Lib Dems. And we're standing for making sure that we build council houses, that we get 3,000 more police officers on the streets, and you can vote for someone who's experienced on the assembly and actually wants to get stuff done rather than just having a title.
And
go out and vote.
That's
That's the most important thing.
That's it. That's it. Go
Have
out
your
and vote. I
say.
think everybody
It's your
needs to
right,
know.
and you
5th of May, go out there and vote. If you don't vote, you know, these important
can't
things that they
complain.
mean. Yeah, you can't complain.
The
Stick to what
postal
you
votes
have.
have already started going out.
Yep,
in
postal
East
votes are
London.
out, just as
and May
Reza
the
telling
5th is the day.
I think I need to get these guys back in another day because
You
we
got my
are
number?
completely out of time. I'm not going to give you his number, but I'm certainly going to
We'll
keep
come on
it.
your football show.
Oh, brilliant.
We haven't even talked about football yet, and
I
cricket.
couldn't even get sports in. I couldn't get anything in. I've got to go. Right, if you've enjoyed that, post your comments
Bye-bye.
across. It'll be back on YouTube, but we've got to go. We'll see you soon, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.